Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Talking Pop Culture with Jake D. We are here tonight to discuss episode 7 of season 5 of The Expanse. And I'll tell you what, that one was a real change of pace for me. I really enjoyed tonight's episode. So we are joined this evening by Mythir, Draco Argentis. How are you, Draco?
I am doing excellent, sir. As always, when streams happen, I'm in the middle of something, so I'll be in transit now. You go ahead and introduce everybody else while we listen.
Very good. And joined again with Matt from Foul Ball Productions. Matt, how are you this evening?
I'm very well, Jake. Good to see you, buddy. Thanks for having me.
You betcha. And we have a new guest this evening, A-Dubs, who's been in the chat a few times for these streams, who is very excited to get the opportunity to chat The Expanse. A-Dubs, how are you, sir?
Hey, thanks for having me. I am super excited. And I must say that I was not as excited before I joined the podcast. I was just watching it and looking at my phone most of the time, the first probably 3 or 4 seasons. Now it's like a book club. I need to learn that and remember every detail of what happened so we could discuss it.
There you go. All right,
Welcome to the panel.
We are glad to have you. See, we have got just another red shirt and his wrench with us this evening. Good to see you, red shirt. Always glad to have you here. Elvis, how are you, sir? Good to see you with us again, man. We love having you in the chat. And, of course, Max Rottenstein. Welcome, sir. And then, oh, goodness. Hello, Sentient Dildo. How are you? And hello. Good to have you. Alex is with us tonight as well. All right.
Sentient Dildo.
Hey, it takes all kinds, my friends.
That's awesome.
Episode 7, Oyedeng, man. So let's start off with quick reactions, ratings before we get into the in-depth recap, man. I'm going to come in on this one at an 8 out of 10. I think this one, in terms of my enjoyment of it, was a small step down from some of the recent episodes. Still very good. Absolutely did enjoy the episode. Not unhappy we sat down and watched it. It was still high quality, but I did feel like it was a little bit of a step down from the past 3 or 4 that we've seen. So where are you coming in on this one, Matt?
Yeah, I don't know if I have a number rating, but it was probably my least favorite episode of this season. It was really slow.
Mm-hmm.
Lots of emotions, lots of talking. I mean, honestly, as far as The Expanse goes, it may be the episode that's moved the plot forward maybe the least in its whole run. I mean, It was every scene was people talking about their feelings, which was so out of character for this show. And I remember I was like 20 minutes in. I'm like, this is kind of a slow episode, and it never really picked up. I mean, we got the one sequence with the Rossi taking on the Zemaya, which was cool, but it was about 30 seconds. And I got to tell you, I was a little bored. I found myself looking at my phone once or twice. I was just like, yeah.
All right, so it sounds like you're coming in a little bit below me, but I understand why you have that reaction. Draco, what do you think, brother?
I definitely seem to have a higher opinion of it than my esteemed colleague Matt. Let's see. Okay, yes, there was a lot of the things that we like to. Well, you see it in several other series. You see emotions in hallways is the way Gary explains it when you hear him talk about it. Now, the thing is that I wasn't so turned off by it, maybe as much as either of you, but I saw the idea that we were going to turn probably. Or I feel like we're going to turn Philip into a lock that must be turned, and the key to that lock is his mother. Now, I don't know if that's the case because I kind of feel like his complexity is a little bit shadowy right now, but yes, the best moment you finally get to see the Rossi out to play, if you will. And
yes, we did. We did get a little action on that tonight.
And you are finally closing up your closing quarters on the stories that are going on around it. So yeah, I would say probably because I want more heat. So yes, I am probably leaning toward an 8 as opposed to a 9 in this episode, but I don't feel like it moved that far down the line for me. But that's a personal opinion. That's after watching it a couple times, I was satisfied.
You watched
Fair
it twice
enough.
already?
Yes. I was not called away. I could watch it twice. I did watch it twice. It helps me make sure I don't miss anything.
Sure. Yeah. Totally.
All right. So what do you think about tonight's episode, A-Dubs?
I liked it, and I thought that this was a Cedar episode. Not so much a Cedar, but maybe a setup for what's going to happen in the next ones towards the season finale. I mean, we are relatively getting close to that and to something serious. And usually in the shows with that amount of episodes, we're going towards the climax somewhere in the 3/4, right? And then the last part of it, the last quarter, is usually the tying the ends and setting up for the next season. So that's at least kind of like how Expanse was for me until now. I felt like the story of Naomi was told better, and she's not all that. She kind of showed up why she left him. So
yeah,
all that part. So the touchy feely part was nice for sure. And you can't go at full burn all the time because you're gonna have
How apropos a comment.
It's perfect and dead on. I agree. It I think this one will be. I think it'll help with. So, for instance, my girlfriend has been really getting grated on by Naomi, right? So Naomi was just driving her nuts, particularly with she abandoned her kid and things like that. So I think filling in that backstory, I know I felt more sympathetic to her after this episode than I had through the rest of the season.
I think we were all looking for a little bit more from her. Go ahead, Matt.
Yeah. No. I think you're 100% right, Draco, and you as well, Jake. I had a feeling when we got the backstory, we got the explanation, we were gonna appreciate it. Like I knew it wasn't going to be something that was empty or narcissistic because she's been such an empathetic character. Even if when she's made missteps, it's always been in service of someone else. She's not a monster of a person. So I knew we were going to get that. I don't know. We've discussed it. I think there's just something about the way Dominic Tipper's been playing the character over the past 2 seasons that's kind of rubbed people the wrong way. She's just been a little like overwrought, I think, at times, and just kind of feels anxious and yelly, and it just kind of turns people off. But I do believe the character has remained sympathetic the whole time through, even when she made mistakes where I was like, what the hell are you doing, Naomi? Like, I still think she's like maintained her moral, center, and her, she's still a good, complete human.
Yeah, absolutely. So A-Dubs, what are you thinking? How did Naomi's background change your perception or not?
So as I told you before, I started rewatching the whole show because now after so much time has passed, and I kind of couldn't remember things. I also started listening to the audio version of the Leviathan Awakes.
Cool.
And I just finished it, and I just started Caliban War, and I must say that it does show really, really well. I mean, it's almost verbatim. There are just a few things that are changed, and Naomi is a little bit different person in the show than she is in the books. At least the way that she is directed versus she is written. But she got. I mean, that time when the end of the first season, the end of the first book, where they end for the first time, they separate ways. They go separate ways, and she shows a little bit of a different direction that she is. I think this was the setup for her journey to Inaro's fleet to see Philip, because she was all tough and manly at the beginning, and then all of a sudden she's becoming that weakling that is all touchy-feely, and she's like, oh, let's care about everybody. She's not pragmatic. She's not the XO. She's not the engineer of the ship. And she's like, we have to save everybody this. And you think, like, what the hell is wrong? What happened to her? She's on a period or something. Pardon me saying that. Like, no, it's a cliche thing to think. But now you understand why that happens. And that motherly, at least for me, like that motherly touch and the fact that she never stopped being a mom, and that conflict of that she carried inside, right? I mean, the fact that she had to leave, and that's what she's saying, right? I mean, that relief that she felt every day that she's not with Marco, that's what carried her, and she's like black-white right now, like switching to like every second she's flickering, right? I mean, she's Naomi of the first season at first for a second, and then she goes into Naomi of the second season. And that's pretty cool, because I think it's difficult to show. It's sometimes we have to read into the characters real deep, but in this case, they are able to show it very illustratively, right? I mean, they can actually show it.
That's something I want to piggyback off of there, A-Dubs. So a lot of times in a lot of modern shows and movies and storytelling, the directors and the writers do a lot more of telling us things, right? So they tell us we should like this character. They tell us this is the bad guy. Tell. But what A-Dubs was commenting on there is one of the things that's really, really great about this show. And the Critical Drinker actually said it really well in a video that he released today.
Fucking A, he did it. I want to take credit for that, because I have been busting his balls to watch The Expanse since I found
You're
out
the fourth person to take credit for that, man.
I will. I will take all the. The moment I met him, the moment I knew who he was, Have you watched The Expanse? Have you seen it yet? How about The Expanse, Drinker? You seen it yet? So I want to take a portion of credit.
The Drinker dropped a Drinker Recommends The Expanse video today. And one of the things that he was talking about in it that I think A-Dubs really hit on right there is that they showed these things to us and we felt these things. And exactly. Show, don't tell is almost a lost art in Hollywood. And that was one of the things that Drinker was talking about, that this is... I mean, he kept saying during his 9-minute video, why can't more shows be like this? Why can't all shows coming out of Hollywood be like this? Because look at the panel of guys that we've got talking about this. We represent the East Coast to the West Coast of the United States. Look at the chat. We have got people in the chat from Europe. We've got people in the chat from North America. We've got people in the chat from South America. And a couple of folks are pretty gosh darn close to that Europe-Asia line. So we got 3 or 4 continents represented on just this little discussion about this show, because it's that good, because they show us and they let us feel it, which we don't get.
Something that Drinker said that really stuck out to me was it seems like it's in a show written by adults for adults.
Yes.
And I was like, "Fucking A!" That's yes. Sorry for the cursing, but
we're good. We're 15 minutes in.
Okay, good. So, but he was right. Like that's exact. Like I was thinking that exact. Like, that's what I felt that. When he said that, I was like, yes. Like it's mature. It respects the audience. It doesn't spoon feed you anything. If you miss it, that's on you. Pay attention more. Is like the subtext, and I love that.
I wanted to add to that the reason for that writing is because it is actual writer of the book.
Right. They're in the writer's
So when you're staying close to the text of the book, the scripts are coming out great. They are cutting really a little bit of the corners just to make it more cinematic and make it more or less capable of actually producing the show.
Sure.
Right? 'Cause some things are not possible. But when you stay close to the book text, the show is going to be good. I always observe that on Stephen King's how's it called? Film.
adaptations.
Yeah, basically they are so close, and that's why a lot of those are either mini series, right? Like the first version of The Stand. And I'm sorry that I'm bringing the second one, right? But that's the thing. The moment that they step away from the text of the book, and people who do that rarely understand what happens, we get a shit production. We get the new The Stand. We get the new trilogy of Star Wars. We get all that stuff from people who don't understand what they're doing, in my opinion. And that's a thing.
Yeah, you have to give credit to the authors of the book too, like the James S.A. Corey, Type Frenick, and Abraham. I forgot his first name, but those two guys, you have to give them credit because a lot of novelists don't understand that like the storytelling in a script is different than the storytelling in a novel, and they get a little precious about what they wrote, and they have trouble adapting. And these guys, you could tell either they had the skills or they learned the skills and the ways to adapt their work into a cinematic like piece of art. And you can tell that they care and they nurture those instincts. They nurture those skills to make it better.
Yeah. Yeah. And I got to agree with.
There's also.
Go ahead, Drago.
I would just wanted to add of that. There's also now A-Dubs hasn't gotten that far in the books. There's also the possibility that they were having their own issues with being able to maintain their ability to tell the stories without putting a platform on it. But there is certainly evidence within the shows that we have seen so far that not only are they adhering to some of the best qualities of the books, but they're making improvements along the way. And it is a significant hope, based on what I have heard about the novel after this, that they will continue to make those improvements regardless of any other personal issues that might come into play when you're writing.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, everything we've seen on screen suggests that they respect their audience as well as their material. And up to, I mean, all the way now through almost the end of season 5, these guys, particularly, and I got to agree with Sentient here, with Shankar overseeing everything, because Naren Shankar is, he's masterful in what he's doing.
Masterful is the word, Jake.
Yeah. We did. Yeah. So we did get, I got to agree there was a lot of feelings in spaceships tonight. We shouldn't pretend otherwise. But it was a lot of necessary filling in blanks that we didn't have yet. So finding out a lot more about the relationship between Sin and Naomi, and learning that Sin helped hide Philip from her, and that she actually was trying to find the kid, and it wasn't that she abandoned him, it was that Marco took him from her. That was a significant revelation. That
absolutely. I will say though, the thing that kind of bugged me about a lot of the backstory and a lot of the feelings in spaceships is that it really was tell not show. Because normally what this show does so excellently is it will reveal backstory and reveal character in service of the plot moving forward. And unfortunately, in this episode, I feel like we got a lot of backstory without the current story moving. I mean, we're almost at the exact same spot that we started in as when we ended. It's like not a whole lot happened, really. I mean,
I agree with that statement. I think that this revelation that he hid the boy from her was not so much to move the story forward, and not even for the benefit of Naomi, because we know she was not looking for him. She was all the time on the freaking Rocinante and running away and shooting stars and giving proto-molecule to Fred Johnson and all those things. But I think it gives us the ability to actually see that the character better of that guy, of the big guy, who looks like a complete lunatic, or I would say schizophrenic or bipolar disorder guy, who on one hand is very nice to her, is completely immune to being hit, and kind of like he is a little bit on the slow side, so he might be on the range a little bit, right?
Possible.
Of Asperger disorder, because he is like Sloth in Goonies, right? Remember that deformed guy, the big dude who was blind inside but looked and did stupid and bad things? So I think he's kind of like a parallel to that character, maybe. And I think that revelation helped us, helped us understand how he was painted as being, on one hand, a good person inside, but under complete control of Marco. And I think that also kind of shows us who Marco is and was. What did he do to Naomi? What he did to Philip? And that kind of ties in to I think the climax when the bad guys are going to be punished, and the good guys will prevail, and mother and son will reunite, and he will understand that now he's free. And he might, they've been telling us how Naomi is abused, and we might very well understand that the boy is abused as well, because Marco and Philip have a textbook relationship of an abuser and an abusee, right? Yep. So like the fact that he's so proud of him and this and that, but any second you are worthless, you're nothing, and you will do whatever I say.
Yeah, no, that's a good observation, and you're not wrong, not at all. There's, and we had that both shown and told to us in the episode tonight, where examples of how Marco's been a master manipulator over the years, and how he's flexed his, like that guy in Germany in the 30s and 40s, right? He had an ability to manipulate people and to, a lot of gaslighting, a lot of twisting things around to get people to see things the way that he wanted them to. And we definitely saw a lot of examples of that from Marco in this episode. I do want to get to, because we haven't touched on it yet, but Alex and Bobby getting in contact with Holden and Bull on the Rossi. So, Draco, can you run down real quick what happened in that portion of the episode?
Well, that was simply a mechanical portion, because eventually you did need to have them getting back with them. One of the important things about this was that Alex and Bobby had found out about Marco's Navy, where it was coming from, who was supplying it. But the thing is that Holden was not aware of it. So the Rossi is going out on this little trip to hunt down the Zemea. But the thing is that he also didn't know that Naomi, who had gone off looking for her son, well, her son is definitely with Marco. Not only is he with Marco, but they're all together. Now Naomi is held, which you find out in the previous episode, and her ship is there, amongst other things. So he knows the ship is there. This is going to set up the use of the ship as bait, except for the very end of the episode, how that will eventually play out.
Yeah, we definitely have to get to there. I
wanted to say about that there was a parallel to that Zemea flight and trying to catch it. It was pretty much the same as Anderson Dawes did that to Fred Johnson in the previous previous season, right? When he just basically said, "Hey, my ship is going this way. I'm going that way," and everybody and all of them are tactics, including Fred Johnson, who got killed. And there are no strategic people besides Avasarala and the Martians, right? So of course they go after that stupid Zmia. And by the way, Zmia means serpent in Russian. So hey,
Oh,
a little bit.
see, and this is why
You
our
might as well tell
international
us what
group is important.
Chesmoya means as well, or Chesmoika.
That I don't even know. Oh, you mean Naomi's ship?
Yes.
I don't think that's a Russian word at all.
Ah, okay.
Looks Russian.
Well,
Well,
one thing that I did want to address, if that's okay, and you tell me if we can do that later on. So a couple of technical details that I'm looking and comparing and how they are presented. So one of them is the juice that we talked about before. The way that it's described and what does it do. I think they kind of did better than the book. The way that they show how the juice floods in. Remember the movie with the movie called The Abyss, where he goes really, really deep and he cannot sustain that pressure, so they fill his suit with special solution that goes into his lungs as well. So I think they kind of made a parallel here, because the way it's described in the books is just, you give you a few injections and they kind of prevent some deteriorations, but nothing. All of those things are chemical and physiological. They are not physical. And I mean, one of the greatest things about Expanse is that it doesn't take us into Star Wars where everything happens magically, but tries to kind of keep us inside the solar system. Everything is super slow. All those burning fires in the engines, they are not really going that fast. So I think that the juice part is really nice. And one other thing that made me think, and I think was a plot hole, was Alex's abilities as a pilot. Remember at the very beginning in the first season, they tell him fly this thing. He's like, I was a commercial, not a commercial, I was like a cargo ship's pilot. I was not. And now he's flying this F-16, F-22 style Rocinante, right? Which is a
I don't look at that as a plot hole. I look at that as like, it's kind of like he never really got the chance to step up and really be in the shit, if you will. Like he, just was a shuttle pilot, and now like, because he says that he describes like why now how he feels so alive flying the Rocinante. It's what he needed, and I think it's just an evolution of his character. It's like kind of like a Rudy. Like the football story. Like he could have been a great player, never really got the shot. So I think it's kind of like Alex. Like this is just his chance to be a fighter pilot, if you will, to fly an F-16, because now he's got the opportunity he never did before.
Well, the other thing that that we saw and watched, and they showed us again, going back to that topic, was when he first stepped in to pilot the Rocinante. I mean, he was nervous as hell, and he banged that thing all over the place, right? Yeah. And he was, yes, he was able to pilot it, but he was clearly not great at it. And over the course of the seasons, you see Alex studying his ass off. I remember there was a scene where he is sitting up there in the pilot's chair, and he's going through sims of battles. And he over and over again, to the point where Holden even like asks him what the hell he's doing. And
he's preparing in the attack for the stealth craft when they're going in to take that one. And then afterward, he studies it even further. And there's a whole plot point over the first season where he's going like, it's almost like people had told him in the past that he was not good enough to pilot these military ships. And that's what relegated him down to freighter craft. And now he's like, at one point in the series, I could not point directly to it. He goes, he says, see how I did that, or something. He's elated in the fact that he would have showed them if he could actually show them.
Hell yes.
Yes. I mean, I think they showed, I think that's really just an arc and a development piece for him. Cause I mean, now the dude's a hot rod pilot, but he wasn't when he first sat in that chair.
No, and that's just character evolution. But one thing I did want to talk about when they were going back and forth with Holden and Alex and Bobby, I really thought that there was them. They were kind of padding the runtime, I felt, because each message revealed like a little bit of what was going on. But logically, I feel like they would have revealed all the information in one message, because it wasn't like it wasn't like but it wasn't like it was the type of information that could have like they were doing to be safe, like, oh, if this falls in the wrong hands, I can't say it. They just revealed it message over message. And I'm just like, why would you not explain what was going on in the first message? Like, and I'm not mad at it. I'm just saying, like, it just felt like a lot of this episode was really dragging its feet to kind of stretch it out. And because also, look, you think about that, you think about the thing with the messages are being dragged out. That's just one example. But we got no Avasarala, no drummer, no Amos throughout the whole episode.
We did get a brief discussion with Avasarala when Bobby was pinging the info about the ships.
We got a message.
Yeah, we got a message back. So, but yeah, that was it. It was like 10 seconds of screen time, which sucked.
Yeah, what do you guys think about Avasarala not appearing at all in the first book, and she is pretty much from day one in the show?
I think it's a brilliant adaptation. I think it's smart because she does become such a prominent character later, and it's an interesting way to kind of weave her in and kind of show what was happening with her when we didn't know about her in the book. I think that's a smart adaptation myself.
I believed that now, this is my opinion, of course, and we're going to have disagreements because we have different opinions. As much as I feel for you saying that, Matt, that you felt the idea of padding out the runtime. The thing is that to me, that message back and forth, each message that is received makes the receivers realize something, and they send message, and then then the message is received on the other side. I actually saw that as it pointed to the reality of what they're doing, regardless of the fact that they're communicating in, quote, real time. The real time is they receive a message. Bobby and Alex don't know what's going on with the Rocinante. They haven't been updated on it. They give a message and they say, we got a whole lot of information to give you. They probably want to keep it on the QT. So the thing is that Holden messages them back. They both realize after the first message and the second message that they're really close together in Q time, because the actual time of the message was sent was part of the message. So they know that they're actually close in the solar system. Why are they there? And on the opposite side, Alex realizes, yeah, they're actually close. What's going on that side? Then you get two more messages.
Draco, I think it's defensible. I'm not saying it's egregious. I just think from a writing standpoint, it's inefficient. Like it just you could have covered
I thought
more
it was
ground.
Appropriate.
I just feel like you could have covered more ground more efficiently if you were trying to. My point of view is that
I would have picked it apart for why are they supposing this information?
I'm more with Draco on this one, Matt, from the sense that the realization that they're close enough that they can almost have a real-time conversation. Far enough apart that you can't quite do that, but
because I still want to defend Matt. I want to give him his forum, because yes, this, with all of that discussion and all of these people talking about why they did these things, the show is long in terms of exposition. All these things that are happening aren't really moving anything forward in time value and plot value of the show. They're reorienting pieces on the board, and that reorientation is taking us a long time. It's one of the things that takes us down a step.
Like, I get all that. I think, and I respect it. I just think it's like, if it was one of those angles, all right, it just felt like it was the whole angle. It felt like it was the whole show. Like,
yeah,
a lot of that could have been accomplished in other ways, and it just seemed like they took the longest route to get there on pretty much every front. So to me, that indicates that this episode wasn't really meant to be much more than kind of a place filler. In my opinion.
Perhaps. I mean, personally, I liked the interaction that they had between Alex and the Rossi. And what I liked about it was kind of in real time, we saw them reacting to learning some important information about just where all those pieces were.
Which they actually edited it in real time, and we think that's several minutes. They sent that message, that's minutes. They sent that message, and go on with your explanation.
Yeah, so when you realize, oh shit, he's close enough that we might be able to work together here. And Alex, of course, has the realization, oh shit, the Rossi's close enough that I can give them information they can actually fucking do something with. Because if they were, Mars and, out somewhere in the belt apart from each other, I mean, what good is Alex sending him that info going to do him?
I understand
in an immediate sense, right?
From a story point of view, what does any of that accomplish?
Showing that your pieces are moving about in different places on the board where they're not supposed to be, and furthering the point that things are happening that not everybody is aware of.
I understand that, but you could have highlighted that without taking that much time. That's I think you could have accomplished the same point without it taking multiple minutes of screen time.
I think this was done though on purpose, right? I mean, Matt, that's a setup. That's the setup. That's it accomplished for them two goals. One, to set up the figures before the actual serious moves, and two, it reduced the pace on purpose. Specifically to create those ups and downs in the show. So
I wish Ty would speak to this in his little meeting with with Wes tomorrow, because I'd like him to defend this point, especially since there are probably lots of people out there that feel the same way Matt does.
It just seems out of character for this show, because something I thought they'd done so elegantly in the past is being able to accomplish all of the things you guys are describing while moving the ball down the field. And I just feel like the ball didn't move. And it's like, as great, as interested as I am in all these details, they don't service anything greater. And that is kind of a flaw, in my opinion.
True. But also remember that you have a lot of shuffling that happened, right? I mean, you don't have Fred Johnson, you have the other guy. I don't even know his name. You have
Marco Inaros.
No. The guy who took over and is flying with Alex.
Bull is his name.
Bobby.
No, Bull.
Bull.
Yeah,
Senator Morathon.
Flying with Holden.
Yeah.
In place of Alex. Okay.
So I wanted to ask you guys if you can tell me, where did Naomi jump at the end? And what was the story? This was like Star Wars new trilogy thing where Leia is flying to the next ship. That detail where they do not immediately turn into ice figures, completely stopping to move, and they're kind of like playing in space the same way that Schwarzenegger played in Total Recall on Mars when there was not enough air.
That's bullshit.
Of course it is.
It's not.
You do not blow up in space. I'm sorry.
And you don't freeze.
You are not
either.
You don't.
30 seconds to a minute.
Yes.
But that's what they showed. Like her eyes were kind of boiling, and that does happen.
But she had some kind of after she injected herself, didn't they?
She had a hypo and injected herself with something that was probably a rescue fluid. We don't know this. This is one of those things, just like the fluid that they use for hyper-G maneuvers. It's a super science. It's an idea that we've gone further. We understand we can pump the body up with fluids, with adrenaline and other things to keep them going under high G maneuvers. We can hit them with something that will keep the heart going for a little bit longer, or if you have an exposure, this will rescue you immediately after. But that's just like you said, A-Dubs, this is them trying to explain, giving us reasonable science explanations to get from here to there.
Where did she jump, though? What was her destination?
She jumped to the Chetsmoyka. Now I'm going to screw up. She jumped to her ship.
Yeah.
The ship that she was trying to give to Philip to run away in?
Yeah.
The Chetsmoyka.
Look, I have no problem with buying that at all because I've done the research and because I always was curious about that because that is what happens. You do have about a minute, roughly 30 seconds to a minute of time that you can travel in space without dying. And there's like certain, if you take like a big breath and you keep your eyes closed, lots of things you can do. That doesn't bother me. What bothered me is that it was very reminiscent of Leia flying in space. And I was like, you don't put that image in our heads. And you have to imagine you share audiences with Star Wars. I mean, it's a little, I hope there was no deeper meaning to that. I hope there was no like kind of middle finger to the fandom there. Cause that's a little like, I don't know why you would remind us of that movie intentionally or unintentionally. It's a bit risky in my opinion.
So I wanted to say to respond though on the Chicxulub name. So that's not Russian, that's Native American, and that's a name of a Native American chief who resided in the city which became Fort Townsend, Washington.
That is not typical. I wonder what when you looked that up, was that did it say the language that it was from specifically?
No, I'm reading this on Wikipedia. Oh, I'll tell you. That's jeez, where is that? Fort Townsend, Washington. So that's Washington State. What kind of Native Americans live there?
Okay.
I'm not sure.
Yeah,
I live in a state that has a lot of reference to Indian names, so.
Yeah,
we all do.
I mean, I'm with Sentient on this one, honestly. I mean, I get why you guys were reminded of Mary Poppins Leia. Don't get me wrong. I mean, I get it. It didn't pop to my head until you guys said it. And the main reason it didn't is because she stepped into that airlock. And of course, Sin thought she was going to be committing suicide like he stopped her from doing one other time before in her life that we learned about in this episode. But she stepped into there and she had that stim with her, right? And she's making a fixed distance jump and she's got the plan, right? So whatever's in that stim somehow helps delay the effects of the vacuum on her body, which, hey, they've also got juice to prevent high G issues, right? So I'm willing to believe that. Yeah. It's 200 years in the future. Yeah, okay.
I like that you call it steam.
Yeah.
I would also break it from this. She's jumping from an explosive, basically she's jumping from atmosphere into space. Assuming she actually survives the jump, she's got to get inside the other ship. And part of this is, remember, the most significant issue is in the Leia, Mary Poppins, blah, blah, blah. She actually is expelled into space. She spends some time there. Yeah. Suddenly she wakes up, force talents herself, which is not my biggest problem with it, because if you've got force, you can push, you can provide acceleration. But she forces herself, Mary Poppins herself, across the space after she's been exposed, after she is already experiencing vacuum decompression and all of that stuff, and makes it back okay.
Right. It's not like a comparison. I don't think anyone.
But it's a reminder.
It's reminiscent. I think it's reminiscent. That's all.
And speaking of Leia, I mean, in the Legends, she is a Jedi. She is trained, and we definitely read a lot in the Legends, which is not in the canon, all about the Jedi.
They had to retcon that in the Ruse of Soywoker that she was actually trained. Because the new Disney was walking that back, and they walked it back to she was not trained, and then suddenly she is trained in the third movie.
Yeah, I think we can pretty much all agree there's no credibility in any of those films.
Let's forget about that. No way.
Yeah, let's talk about stuff that's good.
Let's say
yes, please. We'll do that.
Here's a subject I wanted to raise. And it was something that we've talked about in previous streams and something I was observing. Because I think when the show first started, I mentioned that like Philip's journey, right? He's bad and it looks like he might go good. And the traditional hero's journey arc or whatever, any kind of story arc would be you start good, you end, or you start bad, you end good. You know, it's a pretty straight line. And I said it would be interesting if Philip didn't make a predictable journey, didn't make a predictable arc, and it looked like all the pieces were moving him there. And then all of a sudden, he smacks his mom.
Philip.
I'm kind of honestly like just from like a creative storytelling angle, I would really like it if Philip like doesn't get super good by the end. I would kind of.
So this is though. I mean, remember he is now 21. She left him when he was a baby. So this looked like a textbook divorced family where father and mother are fighting over a kid. She's pulling him, he is pulling him, and then they're fighting over who is pulling who and poisoning the well for each other. That is super textbook. And the fact that he at first hugs mom and then he smacks her because he's more under influence of his dad. He is young and weak-minded. From that perspective, that's one of the things about these kids. I mean, you observe that also in the first part of Death World, right, where the kids are all raised as children soldiers, and they are completely unbalanced. They don't know how to deal with them. They don't know anything besides how to fight really well. And they're all pretty cool ninjas, but when they're home and they don't need to fight, they get PTSD. They get like soldiers that are coming back from, Vietnam and do not get any psychological preparation or service after that. So it's the same kind of story here. He doesn't know what to do, so he wants to look tough. And it very well may be the story of Marco, who is a sociopath for sure.
Yeah. And Elvis makes an astute observation here in the chat. And it's, that Philip's not bad, but he grew up with his father and he's going to stay by him, and it can only end tragically. And I don't disagree with that. And Matt, I like your take on it, that it would be better for him to have more of a tragic path than a redemption arc.
It'd just be refreshing. It'd be different because we've already seen, the spawn of someone evil, like have that arc of going from like kind of being malicious to good in Clarissa. We already saw that like 2 seasons ago. So for me, it would just be refreshing and different if they took a different route, something less predictable. Not to say that it isn't interesting or it doesn't work. It would just be interesting for me to be like, oh shit, that's not what I expected to happen.
Yeah. And, and his follow-up to that, though, I'm with him on this too. It would be weak almost to give him a redemptive arc as opposed to go with the tragic arc.
I would be really happy if Philip and Marco are gone real quick. And, there's like a short episode where he's like, it's too late for me, my son. And they all die in fiery explosion and we can continue with the crew of Rocinante. Haven't read further. I would definitely be happy if that happened because they are really, detesting me.
He's definitely a very friendly mass murderer. You're you're not wrong.
No, actually, Marco is more sympathetic than Philip. Philip is just doesn't connect with him. I cannot stand him.
Ha! Fuck Philip. He's a douche.
Minmorph makes a good point. I mean, he's a cult leader, right? With Marco. 100%. Absolutely. 100%. That's what he is, unquestionably.
Can I offer? Do we lose Draco?
Oop! I think we may have lost Draco.
He might be switching over. He might be going from car to house.
How does Elvis know everything? Is he in the future or in Europe? Just 8 hours ahead, 7 hours ahead.
Can I want to offer this observation and with no judgment, just like what you guys think of it. Not bad or good, but this season in particular, it feels a little small. It feels like a lot of pockets, like things happening in very small, contained locations. And they're all like this story's happening here, this story's happening here, this story's happening here. And while they're interconnected, it doesn't feel as expansive as
it's the other part of it's the other meaning of the word expand.
Alexa,
the story expanding into the world the entire world of the Expanse rather than.
Yeah, I just feel like in prior
different
seasons,
facets of it.
I just feel like in prior seasons, I had a better feeling of what was going on in the system, and right now, I feel like I don't. I feel like I'm following a lot of characters very closely and very intimately without having a grander
Right.
impression of what's going on. Now, that doesn't mean it's good or bad. That's
True.
just what I'm observing. It's like this episode, it really hit me. I was like, huh.
There are a lot of side quests for sure. So at first you had a campaign, well, very linear storyline. You just go and you open only one door. There's nothing else to open. And here in this season, it looks like it's an open space and you can walk everywhere. And it doesn't necessarily it's not necessarily going to be interesting in those spaces. Yeah, just some things are going to be there, but that's not the main line of the plot.
Like in season 1, like you had a tenor of like what was going on with the people of the belt, and you had a feeling of like what was going on with the people of Mars. I feel like I have no idea what's going on with any of the greater populations. I know what's going on with my little pockets. I know what's going on with the people I'm following, but I don't know if the belt as a whole is behind Marco. I don't know what the people of Mars feel like. I don't know really what's going on Earth at all. Like, I feel like there's so much disaster going on. We're not getting a glimpse of any of that. And it's different. It doesn't mean it's good or bad. It's just, I feel like it's different. It just feels like this show's a little smaller than it has been in the past. Good or bad. That's an observation I've noted.
I mean, I can see why you're feeling that way. And I definitely see where you're coming from on that. And I think part of that may be because of what Elvis is saying, where the Marco storyline isn't going to close out in this season. And I'm beginning to absolutely agree with Elvis on that. Now, people who've read the books obviously know whether it does or not, as compared to me.
Please don't spoil that for us.
So, and Elvis is basing it off watching the shows too, and I think he's making a good argument in support of what he's saying, that this does not get closed out this season, because I mean we do only have 3 episodes left, right? And to Elvis's point, Mars is aiding the belt. The belt is delivering the proto-molecule back to Mars. Oh, hey, we got an answer to our question about where the funding for all this shit is coming from.
So that part I missed. Where did that come from? They just
speculation. It wasn't really an answer. It was speculation.
Yeah. It was kind of like, okay, so yeah, you can't buy all those ships. All those ships are Martians. You don't, and apparently they're not buying them. They're being just delivered to them,
or something. Mm-hmm. We don't quite know.
Yeah, and we know obviously that it's got to be coming from high up in the Martian government. That was one of the things that we talked about, because that's the only way that you're going to get that kind of gear, right? Because I mean, it's not just power suits or guns. I mean, it's big warships.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Which was interesting to see them. It is interesting to see the pieces moving forward. I mean, now that Bull and Holden have more of a greater insight as to what's going on with Marcos's Navy and the scale of the threat that they're facing, I think it is interesting. I still feel like a lot of the pieces didn't move on the board overall, and it was a bit of a letdown for me, because I'm like, what's going on with Amos? What's going on with Avasalo? What's going on with Drummer?
Frankly, I'm very, very excited, and I'm hoping it's going to happen, that we will see the things that brought the proto-molecule. I want to see the builders. I want to see those celestial beings. I want to see Shadows and Warlands, and I want to see the first beings. I want to see all that stuff. So yeah, it's cool to see that little touchy-feely and Epstein Drive and the rest of that.
He just wants it all.
Shadows and Vorlands. Did I just hear Babylon 5 reference?
Yes. I want to see that.
You did say talk about good things, man.
Draco, what mic are you using, dude? Is that like that really, like, is that the Joe Rogan mic?
Yes.
It is a mic made of Joe Rogan.
Fancy. That's some high-end stuff right there for a guy who, quote, doesn't have a channel.
I mean, I could run around the corner and go ask Joe if you stole his shit. He does live only a few miles from me now, so
I just don't make any money at it.
Anyone else? Anything else stand out in this episode that's remarkable?
I mean, you're fair to point out that it was only speculation that the proto-molecules being used to pay for all these ships and everything.
Right.
But something that's been bugging me with the way that Marco was observing the Rossi planning to hit the Zemea, wasn't he? Or was it? Am I?
Yeah. No. He there was an intercept course that he observed.
Yeah. So was the proto-molecule really still on the Zemea?
Might not be,
because
we have
didn't
no proof.
Yeah, we
I
didn't.
mean, exactly like with Anderson Dawes, right? When he stole the scientist, same idea.
I mean, if the proto molecule was destroyed on the Zemea, like it was at the end of the episode, like that kind of kills a lot of the tension. So I'd be pretty surprised if that was the case.
Yeah,
There's always more.
Yeah, but who has it? They had to do that big risky, operation to steal it. So, well, it must have been a what do you call like a God, I can't like an illusion, like a feint, like a misdirect.
Yeah,
Misdirection. Well, that might very well be the case because if that is a possibility, this could be because Marco is keeping his cards close to his chest. He's playing all angles, and he's not telling everybody everything. I mean, this is my biggest issue. This is my biggest statement about this episode, and it wasn't necessarily a good thing about the episode, but Marco got to play on all levels of his controlling personality. And the thing is that you still haven't seen him play all of his cards, or you still haven't seen him control all the things he has control over. You could see him playing Naomi. You could see him playing his controlling Sin. You could see him controlling Philip, and all of this stuff. And you get more information about what's going on when he's studying all these pieces. His eventual use of the Chesmoka to hit the Rossi, he was planning at the end of the last episode.
Yeah.
In this episode, you don't know why, but he's looking at the disposition of a couple fleets, and he's also observing the 2 UN vehicles and the 1 Martian vehicle that are patrolling the ring. And there's no reason for that except to set up something coming up.
One other thing may be that the proto-molecule sample that was collected from Fred Johnson's Tycho station was actually payment to Mars for the ships and all the supplies, because they lost their stuff on Io, right? In season 3.
Mm-hmm.
It's possible, but you have to remember that Marco's only leverage is the proto molecule. Because if he doesn't have that, then Earth or Mars could wipe him out. I mean,
now he has a fleet, and
he has a fleet, but it doesn't match the UN fleet.
No, that's true.
Well, I mean, the tech is better, but it's certainly not the size.
And that's always been Earth's advantage is size over technology
and numbers.
And no, exactly, yeah. So I don't know. I mean, I would be surprised if Marcos didn't have the proto molecule. I don't know. I think there's a lot to wonder here because we didn't get that much.
That's true. And a funny thing that I watched the episode 7 of season 5, and I had some time before this show of ours. Now I was rewatching the season 3, and it took me like 15 minutes when we were in the show to remember even what the episode was about.
Nice.
The season 3 episode 6 can completely wipe everything down for me when
Oh, you went back?
Yeah, I started rewatching it because I started reading the book and I couldn't even remember what was happening there before season 5 started.
I actually have some gaps when it comes to some of the finer details of the end of season 3 and a lot in season 4. I forgot they had the railgun. So I have to go back myself and revisit those episodes. I'm probably going to do it on the channel, but that's something about this show that is just so remarkable is how layered it is and how complex it is. I mean, I've seen season 1, I don't know how many times now, probably approaching 10. And even like probably on like my 5th rewatch, I was like, wait, what happens with her? And who is, oh, okay, right. Like it's still like, it's not all crystal clear in my brain because it's so dense. And that's its strength. That's what's so good about it.
Complexity of the narrative, a good narrative, a narrative that draws you in and keeps you there.
Here.
I mean, it matters, right? At the end of the day, it matters. If you can keep our attention, you can keep us interested, and I mean, what a concept. Don't insult your audience.
I know.
I mean, I don't know why that's a foreign concept in Hollywood for the most part.
It's amazing too, because if you were to follow any of the creators on like Twitter, like they're pretty woke. Like they have like the politics that everyone else now has. And I think it's a testament to what talented craftsmen they are, that they really don't weave it. They don't put it in their story. It's not part of what they do.
I mean, there's currents of it, but it's done in the right way.
Yeah.
They're
also leavened by the, creation of a motion picture or a television production is the creation of not just 2 authors that authored the book. It's also the showrunner, Naren Shankar. It's also all of the other producers, at least the executive producers who have constructive criticism in the production, and all of the set designers and all of the everybody who adds to the world.
Yeah.
It's a much more complex thing.
The team cares about what they're
I'm
putting
thinking
out.
there, and Ty and Dan are working with that team. Like you mentioned earlier in the stream, Matt, instead of treating this like their precious baby, they're opening it up and everybody is getting to speak to the finished product.
Yeah. Which is, I mean, such a strength to their character as artists, as craftsmen, because so many authors, they get too precious with their words. And I understand what that feels like. You don't want people, I've had it happen to me. I've made short films where like the director just took out the heart of it. I'm like, no, that's the whole heart. And it's like, it breaks your heart when you make something and people mess it up. So it's like, it's a testament to their strength as artists to take on this journey and to be willing to allow other people to have so much input. And whomever, whether it's the studio that did it or if it's Naren Shankar or whomever from the top down, but they seem to have put all the right people in the right places to make this show work. And it's very lucky. And it was something that like you point out earlier, what Drinker said in his stream or his video is just why can't more shows be like this? It's crazy that this is like a rarity. This is the rare bird. But yeah, I mean, it's the template in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, Chris makes a comment here, and this is sort of what I thought, that Holden said they must have missed the handoff with the Zemaya because, especially with the trap, with the ship blowing itself up. I mean, I don't think that anybody believes that Marco would have let that happen if there's anything he could do about it, or still be able to try to recover the proto-molecule later. So, I'm with you 100%. The proto-molecule must have gotten handed off.
There was 2 other things too.
I believe that, but I don't recall that being said in the episode. But okay,
it's intuition. I think that's character intuition is what he's describing. Like he's like, I know this about Holden, so I feel like he wouldn't make that mistake. I think that's what he's getting at. Something I did want to get at, and I forgot the other line, but the 2 lines really stood out to me early. And it was between Naomi and Marco. Was the one line was that what she said to Marco said, Holden's everything you pretend to be. And I was like, damn.
That's ooh.
Well, yeah.
Well, he had a few stinging comments to send back at her, but that was a perfect that was the perfect sting at him.
And it was
he just had to slap her back by I don't think I can remember both of them. The second one when he was saying, I didn't kill you because I didn't want
that didn't
Philip
make
to
sense.
lose
That
you
line
again.
didn't make any sense. What he said to her.
Alex, do you even like this show? No, I'm just fucking around. I'm just kidding.
Chris's comment, that's about the worst thing a woman can say to you. Yeah.
It's brutal. And she said
what
it with
you
like
pretend
attitude.
to be.
Yeah.
Ooh.
That's something that some of the one-liners, some of like the single lines in this season have been some of the best in this show, which is a lot
And
to
you
say.
said I want to point you back because I don't want to lose track of it. You said there were two, and you said that was.
Remember that it was right in that.
You already lost
sequence. No, I did. I couldn't remember it when I brought it up, but I remember when I was watching, I was like, "Oh, that was so good!" And I was gonna like write it down, but I didn't. I didn't want to like break my immersion from the show and be all critic. You know what I mean? It was just such a good line. I'm actually going through the video right now, and I want to see if I can find it again because it was so sharp. It was just one of those lines that really stood out to me. Like, damn, that's a great line. Like. They've done that a lot this year where they you could tell so I feel like some of these lines, because like I'm a writer too, and like some like really good lines you kind of hold on to. I feel like this season they had a lot of lines that they held on to and they just been like unleashing them because some of the conversations have been so good. Like
I think you can name this episode Jork Store. Jork Store closed. They're running out of you.
Jerk Store, Jared.
Model.
Yeah, I'm with Chris though. My favorite line in this entire series is this one that Chris said, "I am that guy." To me, that's still my favorite one-liner in the whole show at any point.
My favorite one from this season,
son of a bitch out.
My favorite one from this season is Bull's line. We're just like, what your problem is that you think just because someone's an underdog means they're right. And I was just
that was a good one.
Wow,
that is
good.
a good one from last.
It's like a life lesson.
Yeah. Was that it was the first or second episode of the season? I know it was in that first drop.
I hope they will not cancel the show because of this.
I know, right? I swear to God, man. Like, that's why I wonder. I'm like, what are these guys up to? Because it's like they take this villain, right, who's got this kind of cause, but he's a mass murderer, but he's fighting in defense of racism. It's like, what are you up to? Like, I'm like, that's a really curious because you'd think that's not allowed. Like, you can't make someone who's fighting for injustice or anti-racism or whatever to be the bad guy.
That's what the platform says that is not allowed.
Exactly.
That's where they are not letting the platform prevent them from making good cinema.
I know. Isn't it great? It's awesome. It's so great.
It is, man. It's that underdog line was
Everybody is quiet, can't speak now. Like shit. We should be careful about what we're gonna say next.
Oh man. So where do we think we're going next week? I mean, we better be getting a heavy dose of Amos and Avasarala next week.
If I'm being generous, and I think it's fair to be so, I think we are going to get a lot next week. I think that's kind of what this episode was, a little quiet before the storm. I think it's kind of, we're going to hold off. We'll move the ball here. We'll get some emotional stuff out. We'll buy us some time. And then I think they're going to drop it a gear and really push it down to the floorboards. I think that's what we're going to see for the next few episodes. I don't know exactly what, but I think it's going to get ramped. Because, I mean, Holden is now involved. Like, he's not just, a victim of this. He's making action. He's out in the belt. He just destroyed one of Marcos's ships, and Marcos knows it. And now Naomi may have her own ship or whatever the hell is going to happen with that. So I think the action's going to really pop off next week. That's my opinion.
Yeah, and we could get a fair dose of Amos and Avasarala because it wouldn't be shocking if Amos had to pop up to Luna to hitch a ride back out to the belt.
I think that the fact that they kind of distributed them and separated them. So Amos is with Clarissa, and Avasarala is another place. Everybody's in a different place, and specifically the crew of Rocinante. It's kind of like for me is an association with Two Towers, where everybody is going on their own side quest, and in order to converge at the end and prevail again, like old times, prevail like Three Musketeers or whatever over the evil. That's something that where we are right now. So we have to wait it out. We have to persevere, I think, until they are again together and they're kicking butt. And so it's gonna drag for a bit. I mean, it's gonna build up. It's so like how Clarissa is super powerful, and it's pretty cool because on that particular plot line is Amos, who is like the strongest guy with the least conscious on the crew of the Rocinante, all of a sudden is the guy in the duo who has less power, less physical strength, and more apparently emotional attachment. So that's interesting to see how that's gonna go.
Yeah. Chris is asking some interesting questions about what may be coming to us here. So, I mean, specifically about, now that Naomi made it to the ship, what the hell is she going to do? I mean, can she fly that thing herself?
I feel like she has to be savvy enough. If she's an engineer, I feel like an F-18 mechanic might not be the most savvy pilot, but I think he'd know how to fly it.
Yeah.
We already know that Naomi's skills she's beyond her skills when they discuss her at the beginning of the series, that there is no reason that she should be on an ice hauler with her skills as she is rated at the beginning of the show. So what she is capable of is probably considerable, and now there's no one to stop her on that ship. She just has to recover from her deep space exposure.
Yeah.
If she planted that code in Marco's ship, that would be cool too. The Kobayashi Maru, what is the name of that thing?
The Augustin Gamera.
What was it?
Gamora?
Augustin Gamera.
Why is Gamora?
Gamora. I was thinking too, my first thought about that was like, oh, well, why isn't Marco just going to blow her up? And it's like, probably because Philip won't let him.
I don't know what Marco would do that Philip can stop him from doing, especially since Philip's been cocked. Philip has basically been said, oh, and yes, we're going to tell them all about how you destroyed the Rocinante and you recovered the protomolecule and you did all these things. No, you are who you are because of me.
Mm-hmm.
And I did all these things, and everything you are is because of me. And so then just like he's, as he manipulates him further, as he says, as A-Dub says about, he is this person who's already been leveraged. He is twisted back around to say, so I've just slapped you and slapped you down hard. Now I'm going to caress you and pet you and bring you back in.
Welcome back.
That's the beauty of this episode, I think, because if we think that this was happening before Naomi arrived, and there was absolutely no counter thoughts in the boy's mind, now that she talked to him, the way he looks at the father when he says these things to him, he sees them in completely different light. And I think that's a setup for him to like, okay, now I'm going to be lookout, and I'm going to kill you in your sleep like Palpatine killed Plagueis.
He's definitely got a more complicated path now because of those two things warring in his head.
Yeah, I don't know what's going to happen with Philip. Like I said, I just really hope it's not the traditional, like, oh, he's going to become good. I just hope it doesn't.
But this is where it is. This is where how you were explaining. You don't want something that you've seen before. Right now, they've set up the idea. I think every one of us can say what's going on in Philip's head right now. We can't choose. We know that we know that he was there with his mother, and he was with her, and he was breaking down slightly as a 21-year-old man, but nonetheless, there is something there that you could see. The boy was coming out, and then the father is treating him. He wants to prove, and he wants to be, at the beginning of the episode, he wants his father to be proud of him, and his father is dissatisfied with him, but his father has said that he will do these things if he shows up and if he is worthy of it, because he's the one that's supposed to take this forward. Now you've got now you got a person. Philip is on that. Which path is he going to follow? Is he going to fall down? Is he going to choose a path? This is well-designed characterization.
I agree. I do agree. I like I say, even to my criticisms, I don't think the episode was bad. I just think it was the one that moved the ball forward the least, which is, from my point of view,
long time getting there.
Yeah, just as a storyteller,
exposition.
As a fan, to me, stories first, everything else is second. But I think they're buying themselves a little time, and I think the next 3 episodes are going to be like the Super Bowl.
Yeah, it's
Amen to that. Amen to that.
I mean, there's a reason why this one got a little lower rating out of me. Because I mean, I don't disagree with you that it was slower and that it drug on more. And we did get more of telling us than showing us in this than this particular series usually does. I didn't think it was horribly out of place or poorly done. But I see where you're coming from in the observation that as a whole, the episode was a little bit slower and felt like it dragged some in comparison to what we're used to.
It was just a lot of scenes. Like you said, a lot of feelings in spaceships. I mean, it was like kind of scene after scene after scene of that, which was, it started to I noticed it and it dragged on me a little. And it's just not something I'm familiar with in this show. It's not something they ever really do. Like they have their emotional scenes, but they're usually few and far between, or they're like after a battle or before a battle. This just kind of felt like we're all going to talk about what we feel in our backstory. It's like, oh, I kind of expect a little more out of the writers here. But I just think because I think it's a 10 episode season, right? They got to plan it. They probably had a little bit of a time here where like, what do we do? We got to talk about some stuff right now. We just have to kind of eat it. And also, if you notice the runtime, it was shorter than most of the episodes. It was only 47 minutes, which the rest of the episodes have been closer to an hour. So I think that kind of supports my argument too.
Yeah. And, I was with Dan on this. Once we got to about halfway through it, I felt like it picked up a lot. But the first, especially the first 10 to 20 minutes, it was definitely slower. I mean, again, liked the episode, enjoyed it. It just wasn't the peak of excellence the past 2 or 3 have been. That's all.
There you go. And it was still cool seeing the Rossi take on the that ship.
You finally get to see the Rossi take on something. Where have my miniguns been? Not to mention, Railgun finally got to kill.
Yes.
And what do you think? Do you think that jammed PDC is going to have any future consequence?
They're going to fix it. That's going to be its consequence.
Ideally, they fix it, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, obviously. But I'm just saying, like, I wonder, because it came up in the episode, but it served no purpose. So
I think it did. I think
it
actually
served to
did.
ratchet up the tension of the scene and also show you the weakness in that particular defense structure.
Yeah, and they had to get it rotated a bit to get the other gun to be able to engage the last 2 missiles. So, I mean, it was mainly...
Which also highlights Bull's tactical prowess and piloting skill to understand what is happening and what he needs to do.
And I think how sophisticated the Martian torpedoes are.
In what way? That they can hang around the ship for a bit?
Just that they have like programming to evade traditional countermeasures. Like whatever your first defense is, you kind of have to go another level or 2 with it. It's kind of like in the first season when the Donninger was facing the like Joel Pierre Morales ships. They were more sophisticated than they were expecting. I think it's something like that. I think we're kind of like, these are Martian torpedoes. They aren't just like Earther torpedoes or Belter torpedoes. These are the best in the solar system. Yeah,
absolutely. And what we got with the engagement with those point defense cannons to taking those out, I mean, that was visually a badass scene.
Here.
I mean, the way Bull throws the Rossi into a spin to help it engage this. I mean, it was a spiral of missiles coming at them.
Yeah, it looked really cool.
That was good, man. Yeah. I loved it.
I liked seeing
guided and deployed so that they couldn't be wiped out by their first salvo.
Mm-hmm. And I liked that the reporter woman was like, "Oh God!" Like she realized for a second she was out of her depth. I thought that was interesting too.
Well, that also carries from the idea that she was so gung-ho to get on the ship, and Holden's very first retort at her is that you realize we're going to be going into combat. We have to be ready for this. She says, "Yeah, sure, I'm ready."
They said the same thing to Miller. Remember when Miller was supposed to fly, and Fred Johnson told him, like, "Dude, what are you gonna do there? Don't go." And I was like, "Yeah, I can do that."
Well, Miller wasn't ready for it, but he got on board as soon as he was there, so he showed up.
Yeah, nobody would tell Miller what to do.
I do miss Miller.
No.
I miss Miller, man.
Hail Miller.
Yeah, I wonder if he'll make a return.
I still want him to return.
I feel like he might return. I don't know. Season 4, I feel like it may have killed him permanently, but he might make a return in like the subsequent the next season.
He could show up because we are not necessarily done with the idea of who were the enemies of the builders, and Holden has got this reprogrammed brain. We don't know yet, but you probably need proto-molecule to get it to happen, so they'd have to include that.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe.
I will just say, just as a fan of the whole series, I feel like in some ways this is sort of a step back this whole season. Not to say I don't enjoy it, but just that I felt like the first 3 seasons were moving towards this is a complete misunderstanding of the proto-molecule. It's this whole grander thing. It's not a weapon. It's all this stuff. And now it's kind of come back that it's sort of it's back to being a weapon. And it's like
that's because the platform changed, right? From Sci-Fi to Prime to Amazon Prime.
But like you said, it's the same authors, same people in the writer's room.
It is. And we still have the same showrunner. Shankar's been with it all the way.
Okay. Maybe not then.
I mean,
coincidence.
Executive
and realistically
shift a little.
Realistically, the proto-molecule unemployed is simply a threat. After all, it's like a nuclear deterrent. It's the threat of unleashing the thing rather than what the thing actually is and capable of doing. I mean, functionally, what it was supposed to do in our system, in the storyline of the show, has occurred.
Yeah.
It set up one of the ring gates that never got built, that never got added to the system. It set that up and finished it. It was allowed to complete what it was intended to do by actors in our show, by those people that got it done.
Yeah.
Without destroying the life that was already here, which is key to it.
Because it was supposed to land on Earth but missed, right? Isn't that the idea?
Yes. That was the idea.
In the books, though, that was another interesting difference that I observed. In the books, the description of the purpose of proto-molecule was what was that in the show? I already don't remember. It's all mixed up in my head. But I remember the explanation was that it was looking for, single cell biomass to use it as just a simple construction. And then what happens when it was unleashed into the human hosts, it was improvising. And the things that were happening were not happening as they were going according to plan. So there was no plan to destroy Earth or destroy life on Earth. It was actually kind of like to elevate life from biomass into something more advanced.
It's like a terraforming tool.
Yes.
So it's like whatever alien life form they launched it wherever they launched it to, and because it was on the other planet that from last season, like they described it had that the life evolution on that planet stopped and then took a new branch off because it stopped all the life, created proto-molecule gates or whatever those things were, and then created a new evolution.
Kind of like beliefs in the human race being a fork of a different, taking into a different direction.
Yeah, I think
we are definitely getting into Expanse theory right now because we are presuming the thoughts of not just the writers, but we are presuming the thoughts of the writers who have developed 2 different storylines now. So, I mean, it would be interesting to ask the question of them, wouldn't it, to find out what they originally intended. Has that varied now that we are developing the show? And it's, I mean, to be specific, A-Dub, I have not read the books. I have gone into various summaries of the books to find out certain differences. But as you go into the books, you will see variations along the way as to how they decided to carry out certain things, and you'll be able to choose whether you thought they did better or worse. But it's interesting because now we're definitely angling into what did they do, what did they decide to do, why are these differences there, is that better or worse? Your opinions insert here.
I think we talked about it. I
wanted to bring up Dresden. One thing, if and I don't know if that's a good timing for it, but we can do it next time. Because the Dresden in the book was so much better to me. He was the smug executive and not the mad scientist. He was a guy who had a vision like Steve Jobs style, right? Who said, like, I have a vision and I don't care about anything. And this guy in the series was really kind of like tired and, John Nash style, who didn't care about anything. But we can talk about that differently.
Maybe that was a little of the platform that the books were written on, because that would turn out to be a checkbox. That would be corporate man bad.
Yeah, maybe. I thought about that as well. That's a good point.
To Chris's question, I don't know, unless it comes in as some sort of grand like Deus Ex Machina to impact the story. Nothing has been leading to believe the ring gates have much to do with this story, other than the fact that I think Marcos's plan is to go through them.
Yeah, I mean, he did bring it up very early when he was delivering his manifesto, but just in the sense that, hey, they're ours. These belong to the belt.
Yeah, even though they can't utilize any of the planets that are on the other side.
Yeah, and
there's also storyline that takes off from this that is something that we haven't seen yet, and it's not being discussed in any form that I have been able to decode it in any of the episodes so far.
You know, it's funny. My mom watched our last stream. She was like,
how does Mama Foulball like our little...
She enjoyed it, but she didn't, I think she didn't, like, because she's not in the Phantom Menace, obviously. So our dissertations about Manzel's and Mary Sue's kind of confused her. She didn't know where she's like, I don't know what those mean. I figured it out from context, but I didn't know what you guys were talking about. And she kind of got bored with those little things. I'm like, yeah, but that's what we do here. Like,
it's a little out of her dictionary.
Yeah, she's what you'd call like a normie. You know what I mean? Like, she's like someone who's a fan of things, but
nothing wrong with the normies. They keep the world going round.
Hey, without the normies, there's no
mudbloods, right?
we can't keep a fandom going by ourselves. We need the normies, and so do they.
We need the people that are interested and are willing to think a little bit further beyond the normal. We're trying to sell this to everybody who. Maybe you just want a drama. Maybe you just want some action in your life, and you're watching this thing or that thing. And it's one of the things we like about this show is that we really appreciate it, and we talk about it at length because it is generally created to be such a deep thing. But also, we'd really love the support for it. We'd also love to talk about it to people who might not be into the deep science that they're satisfying, that might not be into the galactic plots, the solar system level plots that are going on, and that some people might not be interested in, and they just want to see the Rocinante taking on another ship that's trying to shoot them down too, and that's a big deal, and they want the feels. They want the story that explains why this person is doing that person.
Yeah.
That came out wrong.
No, but
well, I mean, sometimes you want to see why a person's doing another person too. I mean,
Yes,
it's compelling.
We don't have to care about who you do you, but maybe I might want to be interested to know why you do you, but I'm not there at this moment. I'm just saying.
Yeah. Screaming Firehawks are the bestest fans ever. Here, sentient dildo. Here. Screaming Firehawks. I'm gonna miss Kaz next season.
I am gonna miss Kaz, man.
I hope they don't kill him. Holy shit! No, they can't, because he didn't get fired until after this was already shot. So
yeah, I'm thinking they're gonna just have to explain it somehow in the first episode, and I've got a feeling they're gonna bring Bull in. I mean, we just saw him pilot the Rossi like a bad.
Hold on a second. If it's already shot, are you saying he's not going to be next season? So why not kill him?
They've already said he won't be coming back.
Yeah,
The press release is out.
This season was shot before they made that decision.
Oh, you mean the next season?
Yeah.
Yes.
So why
season
not
6.
kill him?
Well, because
it hasn't been. You could kill him, but then he's killed off screen because they're not going to.
Yeah. Kind of like with Kevin
with
Spacey.
Right.
In House of Cards. Oh, look, he's dead.
There's a similar.
Oh yes, he died. It was a terrible accident. We all went to the funeral. It was a beautiful thing.
It's really sad. Anyway,
I'm gonna go for a walk.
Carrying
You're not
on.
killing anyone,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah,
let's not dwell on the past now.
yeah. It's because they finished filming season 5 completely before he was canned. So I mean, it is a fair question to ask. Where do you go? And with what we've seen so far of season 5, I mean, unless he dies at the end of this,
Which,
I mean, to me at least, Bull seems like your obvious replacement, unless he dies in the climax of the season.
yeah, I don't know. I know that Bull, like I said, Bull is a big part of the book 3. He's kind of like Drummer is sort of an amalgam of who he is. He's not really featured in the show at all, and he's a big character in the book, which is kind of a weird thing for book fans. But it seems that Drummer filled his shoes pretty well. So maybe he'll get a more prominent role in the 6th season because of that. We'll see.
Yeah. I mean, you either have to recast Alex, or you need to find a credible replacement as the pilot of the Rossi.
He's gonna be like with Joey on Friends. He's gonna be Drake Remore and his evil twin brother.
Yeah. Ascension saying he doesn't want to see him recast. I feel that way too.
Yeah, I'd prefer you somehow explain why he's not there, and like I say, unless Bull dies at the end of season 5, I think you could slot him in.
Yeah, I mean it would work. It would be a little jarring, but it could work. It could work.
I hope these things. I mean, I'm not gonna read anything ever again about actors and actresses and scandals, because I mean, Kevin Spacey is a douche, but I will never stop watching The Unusual Suspects ever, and American Beauty. Still great movies, great actor, douchebag of a person, possibly. Don't care about that movies.
Separation of the actor from their acting.
Yep.
The artist from the art. Yeah, Glengarry Glen Ross. It's hard. It's hard to get rid of Spacey altogether.
There you go.
Yeah.
Always be closing, man. Always be closing. ABC and coffee is for winners.
That movie is so goddamn good.
Classic.
Kaiser Soze, man, that's always the best one for me. But
And then he was
Kaiser Soze.
Sorry.
yeah, the dude is a piece of shit.
Kobayashi porcelain.
Unfortunately, it's true.
And I mean, I hate to say it, but I mean, it really looks like Anvar, well, probably not as bad as Spacey. Also, I mean, from what we're hearing, sounds like he did some messed up stuff.
It seems from everyone who's read all the accounts kind of drew that conclusion too. I haven't brought myself to do it, but it does sound like it's kind of open and close. And, you know, Amazon, I guess to their credit, they took time. They didn't just immediately respond. They weren't just like, oh, well, we heard it and it's not, so he's fired. Like, they didn't do anything for like, I think those accusations came out in June and they made the announcement last month or maybe late November. So to their credit, they took their time to figure out whether it was credible, whether they wanted to get rid of him or not. So,
which is what you should do.
Agreed.
When somebody has done something untoward, extremely inappropriate, hits that assault type level kind of thing, yeah, you got to can their ass.
Yeah.
I mean, you have to.
Yeah, it's not. There shouldn't be any kind of like, oh well, we like him. It's like, yeah, but what about the person they harmed? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if you have credible
We're
reason,
not supposed to immediately cancel someone like Johnny Depp.
hell no.
Right. Exactly. That's what and as I said, to Amazon's credit, they didn't. So give them that, I guess,
Yeah.
They must have found enough credibility to the accusations. So, which sucks. I mean, it just sucks that it's weird. It hasn't really bothered my enjoyment of the show, but it just sucks that it's kind of looming over the show.
Yeah, and Chris makes a fair comment here. I mean, it's in particularly sad because he did a lot to try to save the show.
Yeah, he did. He did.
He was a big part of that. But yeah, I mean, Amazon seems sasatisfied that he did those inappropriate things.
And apparently it wasn't even just people off. Apparently it was crew as well. Apparently there was like a girl on the crew or who worked for the show or something like that. He was also relentless with her as well.
I don't know, man. Just you shouldn't. you don't piss where you eat, man. I mean, that's just
look. It is what it is. There's lines. I think what it came down to is that it's a pattern of behavior. Because I know a filmmaker who tried to get him involved in something that she made. And, she put something on Instagram right when all the accusations came out. And she said that he kind of not deceived her, but he kind of feigned interest in her project kind of under the guise of actually just wanting to bang her. And she said, like, he didn't do anything inappropriate with me, but from the accusations, it sounds like it's in character. And so I was like, man, it just felt like there is some. It seems like there's validity to this, and
very, very bummed.
Yeah, it sucks. It just sucks. Like overall, like I'm not gonna fight for someone who did bad things, but I just know that I care about him, and it just sucks that it's like, oh wow, too bad.
Yeah,
I hope you guys are not supporting the removal of Cara Dune, though.
What?
Not around here.
Get out of here. Absolutely not.
I only have Batman.
Cara Dune's got her own show with a couple of X-Wing pilots, I hear.
Oh, there's a stupid campaign to remove her.
Yes, for the very same reason that they want to cancel everybody else, because she is uncontrolled. And it already seems like like Disney isn't going to stomp on her, at least not currently.
Ascension, I think everything that we've heard is that if that's all it was, he'd still be on the show. He doesn't take no for an answer is basically the story.
That's the impression.
Yeah.
So
that's the impression.
I mean, I that was one of the things when it might have been just a discussion with you and I, Jake D, that I was mentioning I didn't want any snap judgment on this, and I was willing to give him the benefit of the doubt, and it just comes down to the fact that they've done the research, and he's done more things.
They did a several-month investigation, and they said this guy's got it.
This guy's got to go.
I cannot find anywhere
anybody
anybody who says the results of the investigation. All I see that there were allegations, and the investigation was launched, but
you're right.
No results besides firing.
It's all in-house. It's not. They didn't release the results. They just decided to make that choice. It's just that the Reddit thread of allegations is like a mile long.
No, the allegations themselves are public, but there is nothing that says they are true or not.
The reason I think they are true is because of how long they took to make the decision, because it wasn't a snap decision. It didn't come that month. It happened in June. They made their decision in November, December. To me, that seems like a pretty healthy indication that the investigation came up with enough legitimacy to let them go, because it wasn't public pressure at that point. They could have kept going. I mean, this show exists in its own corner. I feel like even the people that care about that kind of thing would have moved on.
I did not even know until you guys told me about that last podcast.
Yeah, and Chris makes a point here that it's he wishes there was a way for him to be forgiven and they could keep it going the way it is, and asks if that's selfish, and it's not, right, because he is
It's
great
the way you feel. Yeah.
Yeah,
He's great.
It's not a bad instinct, but it is selfish because in the end, not to attack you or anything, but it's just like ultimately, it's like our enjoyment of the show is less important than like someone who got hurt. You know what I mean? Someone who's like, or if it's a pattern of hurting people, it's just kind of like you can't keep that guy around if that's his character. So it's like I feel the same way.
I don't think that there is a
guy. Well, it's like
that's not selfish in a negative way either. It's just the idea that we are connected. He's done the actor who I was going to try to bring up his name, but is now fleed from me once again.
It happens, stream brain.
He has created such an excellent rendition of the character. We appreciate him. We feel for him like several of the other members of the crew. And that sort of, we want to see that continue. We want to see it. We want to see him continue to perform this. But this is also a problem with separating the actor from their art. Mm-hmm. That the actor has done things in the real world. Yeah. Those things have consequences. Yep. Part of it is that we don't know. So there's probably going to be, unless and until these things come out to some degree, it's always going to be a question in many people's minds. Why can't he just be forgiven and continue? Why can't he just do something to make amends for what he did? Yeah. Is that possible? It's an argument.
It depends on what he's done, right? I mean, Elba's exactly right.
You want it.
What it was.
You want it, but is it selfish to want it? To a degree, but no more than any of us feel that we want him. We want to care. We want to continue caring about that character that was created by this actor. Right. We just are not going to get that because the realities of the situation are not going to happen, and it's not going to be fair to allow him to continue because what he did in the real world takes away from his ability to continue to perform his art.
Yeah, and that's fine. So no future. We like Alex Kamal. We don't like Kazanvar.
Yeah, I mean that's really what it comes down to.
Yeah,
and it's just being a professional actor is a real privilege. I mean, it's like you earn something that few people get to do. A lot of people, like most people would like. A lot of people try, and the fact is, hey man, you made it across the finish line. If you're abusing that position, you're abusing that privilege. That comes with consequences.
Yeah.
Not always that you lose your gig, but in this instance, it sounds like that is the consequence. And you know what? It's kind of on you. You're a public person. You have to know when you're damaging the thing that you're a part of versus, your own interests. And if you can't tell the difference, it is 2020. It's, 2021. And this is the way it is now. So you gotta be a big boy, Cass, because that's the reality, man.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing I can conclude is that Amazon must have decided, probably with something like a preponderance of evidence type standard, that he probably did this stuff, and it's not stuff that we can forgive.
Yeah,
whatever it is, right there. That
taints the image. It taints the image. It just makes the show and the brand look bad. And Amazon can't really afford something like that. They're too big of a company. There's too much.
Yeah. So very well, maybe that's just allegations or whatever it is.
And even if it's not enough evidence that somebody could be convicted of it, if there's enough out there to make it to that most people would believe he probably did it, you got to cut ties.
And here's the other thing I don't see. I don't see people coming to his aid.
No one is.
So many people came to Johnny Depp's aid. I mean, Doug Stanhope, I think, went through a lawsuit to argue for his friend's innocence. And I don't see any of that. I don't see any of the cast coming to his aid. I don't even see himself coming to his aid. So it just kind of, that silence is sort of deafening.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, whatever it was, he probably did it or something like it.
Or something like it, yeah.
You know, 'cause to your point, not even he is trying to defend himself.
I've heard him say absolutely nothing. And I know if it were me, I would never shut up about how innocent I am.
I think it's the same that happened to Aziz Ansari, right? Same behavior.
No, I think this is much worse. This seems more chronic.
No, I'm saying like from the perspective of the reaction, no reaction, and that's the right reaction in this case. You should not be talking at all because people, the people opinion court is always against you because it's more fun.
Yeah, but the public came out in defense of it. These people were like, they listened to the allegations. They're like, that's bullshit. Like this isn't like worth canceling this person over because this is just a bad date. This doesn't mean he's a bad guy. No one's saying this about Cass. I haven't heard anyone defend him. So that counts. I mean, like I said, it doesn't. I don't know. I wasn't there, but it's gonna sway my opinion.
It's certainly not a conviction, but it doesn't look good when nobody's coming to your defense.
Yeah, man. Speak. And if you're innocent, fucking speak up. He hasn't said shit. So.
And it could also be under gag in order to prevent spreading thing.
It
might be just if you had one offense that was a real offense. I mean, that would be enough. That's enough for conviction. So gag him, don't let him talk, and we'll defend him. But the thing is that it's still enough. It's you did it once. There's enough proof of one thing. Well, you did one thing bad, so you got to pay for it.
Yeah.
It's done.
Yeah. Yeah, it just sucks that either it happened and that sucks, or it didn't happen and he's like a victim of the times and that sucks. I mean, either way, it sucks. And, the fans suffer.
Elvis, we're not going to do that. But
what did Elvis say?
It all comes to trust the system yet again.
Yeah, we're not going to go down.
Yeah, I don't know what to do with that. Yeah.
No, we'd go way off topic if we started talking about that.
Well, I think we tried to make the
this is not the scope of this.
Yeah. So I don't know, guys. So final thoughts on the episode tonight, and before we wrap up for the evening, Matt.
My least favorite of the season. I thought it was slow. I thought it was a lot of us talking about our feelings, us talking about the story, not the ball moving forward. We got some cool action, but I kind of felt like that was like, okay, we'll give them action just so that the whole episode doesn't drag. What I'm hoping is that it's in service of the next 3 episodes being just rock and roll, AC/DC, just, full bore all the way through. And I feel like that's what it's going to be. The setup was so strong. This just felt like, we got to buy ourselves a little time. That's what it felt like. It wasn't bad. The dialogue was still great. I mean, there's still some rock star lines that I took away that I'll still remember. It just was probably my least favorite, but that's, we're still talking about like my least favorite 5-star meal.
Yeah, fair enough. And just real quick, Chris has brought up that, there's been some review bombing done on the show because of the weekly release. We saw that happen with The Boys in September as well. Yeah, the
Boys.
And we've talked about this on other streams too.
Yeah, but it's basically a lot of people have gotten used to binge drops of an entire season because that's what Netflix always did. And that's what Amazon kind of did at first. And from my point of view, and I'll just be honest, there's as a fan and as a YouTuber, I have 2 very different reasons to actually like the fact that they've made this change. As a YouTuber, this gives us shit to talk about every single week for a couple of months, and that's a good thing.
Great. It is a good thing.
By the way, I'd like to bring up something from the point of view of this particular discussion. When I went on to the show and watched it today, before going through it the first time, I did bring up the reviews down below, and I do not know how they show you those reviews from individuals who did this. One of the first times that we talked about that review bombing, there were 3 comments that were the first comments on the top of the Expanse. They were all 1 star, and they all said, "Stop the weekly release, stop the weekly release, stop the weekly release." They were actually different than that. But the thing is, the exact same 3 comments were there today that were there weeks ago. That isn't really speaking much about things changing. They just
and to Jake's point of like the YouTuber thing, I mean, you know, we all got into YouTubing because we're fans, just like Gary, you know, just like the guys that we like look up to. And as a fan, I appreciate the fact that we have more time to talk about it. That, you know, we can speculate about the ideas. It really fleshes out the experience. I mean, I've binged a lot of shows that I kind of remember. And as much as the Game of Thrones demise pains me, I remember those seasons.
Yes.
You know, because I thought about it and I would talk about it with my friends and we would like speculate on what the next episode is going to be like. What does this mean long term? What do you think? Because we had a lot of time to digest it and it was in everyone's mind and we were looking forward to next week. We couldn't wait for it to happen. So I think as a fan, it enriches the experience.
Yeah. And I mean, which is exactly what Chris's follow-up comment basically says. You know, he's looking out alternate material and additional stuff for that reason, right? Yeah. And
well, also the whole thing about this binge, I mean, binge content was created initially by a bunch of shows that were released in toto after their runs were complete.
Yeah.
You can binge the whole thing once the season is over.
Yep, it's true.
Yeah.
True.
And you know, Dan said this is to an extent going into kind of like why I like that they're doing it weekly, right? The YouTube part where we're doing streams and having fun and chatting with people, like, you know, it gives us 2 months worth of shit to talk about.
Yeah.
As a fan, I love it because in order for this show to be more popular, right? To your question, Dan, you need buzz and you need people talking about it. And you need to, you know, have you go to your buddy and say, "My God, have you seen The Expanse yet?" You need somebody like Critical Drinker to finally sit down and watch the show. And have,
not to mention, you bring that up right now, and I want to interject this. Critical Drinker listed one of the reasons that he had not gotten into The Expanse was that except for the people in his comments constantly trying, just like you, Matt, just for the people constantly trying in his comments to get him to watch the show, he had heard almost nothing about it. Why the heck has he heard nothing about it for 5 freaking seasons?
It's a tough sell, man. That's the hardest thing.
Yeah, the reason he never heard anything about it is because Syfy is a shit network and nobody watched it. Yep. So there's seasons 1 to 3 explained.
And they market it poorly.
Yeah, season 4 was binge dropped, and it was binge dropped on the same fucking weekend that The Rise of Palpatine hit theaters. And so it just got swamped, and there's no extended talk.
And we've also talked about that the first 3 episodes of the show are tough because you don't have a core group of people to follow. At least that's my theory. So I think people are like, "What's this Expanse thing?" They get halfway through the first episode and they're not interested. So I think it's like, yeah, there's a weird buzz. It's a very passionate buzz, very passionate fan base, but it doesn't have like a Game of Thrones credibility where everyone's talking about it. Everywhere you go, you can't escape it. You just meet a couple weirdos like us who are obsessed.
But listen, one thing I wanted to say that for me, it was not easy to get on it. I loved Babylon 5 episode 1. I loved the Battlestar Galactica episode 1. They start awesome. Expanse starts slow. And I think the 3rd or 4th episode, she's like some dirty people on some space station, and Miller did not look attractive at all. This weird
the hair,
yeah.
I still
looking for a bad hairstyle.
I still like it, drinker. I still like it.
So yeah, I mean, it took me a while to get there, and now when I started rewatching the first 3 episodes, I mean the first season again, it looked very different because I was looking for things like, oh, that's why. Because the first one, I was looking at my phone most of the time. Because
It's
like,
tough.
okay, let's get to the action already. When the silence are gonna come out, I'm gonna because PDCs are definitely from Battlestar Galactica. I mean, it's just like they even have the same sounds that their battleships were doing when they were shooting those cannons.
I had the same issue, man. I had the same issue, and I think it ultimately has to do with the fact that the crew is not a crew, and you don't really know who you're following. And once you know, and like you said, you go back and rewatch it, it seems amazing. But as an audience member, as an outsider, and you're not connected with anyone on the show yet, it is. I do think it's a tough sell, and I think that needs to be like just another red shirt. You're a mod, you know. We got him into the show, but it was like he came on one of the streams with on Vigilante's channel, and he's just like, "Can you make me understand why this is good?" And I was like,
exactly.
"Just episode 4."
Exactly.
And he's in now. Now he's obsessed. But it took a guide to get him there.
I have a question for you also because you are someone on the panel, AW. The book, you got into the audio book. What did you think about Ty and Dan getting you on board in the book to listen, or did you just listen to it because you had to get through it? Did they hook you is what I'm asking.
Oh no, so I am in my experience, if I read the book and then I watch the movie or the show, it's gonna mostly suck. The only time when it did not suck was with Stephen King's books, which were put on screen. But the opposite was a very pleasant experience because, and the reason that I got into the books was because you guys mentioned I didn't know they existed. And so after I already watched half of the season 5, I started with the first audiobook. And audiobook is just because I have so much more time to listen to it while I'm doing everything else.
Sure. All right. A quick question then. Did you feel the sense that they hooked you, that someone could read the book and say, boy, this is interesting? Just kind of a yes or no or a qualifier.
Not at the age of 40. I loved these types of books by Robert Shackley, by Asimov, by Bradbury when I was 13, 16, 18, until I joined the army and kind of like became a family man. It kind of switched. I love that through the visual medium, but now going back, it's pretty cool.
Then I would suggest that maybe this is a problem that Ty and Dan have in both mediums, that they did not know how to hook people into it. It wasn't until they actually got going, once you had set up all your main characters and everything, that you actually have something to follow and something to care about. The book didn't do it, at least for you, when we're gonna use that as an example, and the show doesn't do it right away. I myself kind of like pushed through the shows until it started getting interesting, and I started paying more attention and saying, this has got some interesting stuff. And then it started getting good, and you start seeing the Tachi ripping out of the Donager, and it's like, oh, that's interesting, that's good stuff. And you start seeing things happening with the proto-molecule, and it's like, whoa, this is crazy stuff going on here.
Yeah, the Tachi ripping out of the Donager, that's the moment, right?
Yep.
Anybody who it's pretty much almost anyone who watches the show, as long as they make it to that moment, they're in.
I was hooked way before. For me, the critical moment was when Chaz Had disappears.
Chaz really?
Disappears with that piece of shrapnel that goes, and he speaks, and in the middle of the speech, that is the first actionable. I mean, frankly, the moment that they stop with the ice hauling, which is a super old concept, when they stopped with Miller walking around the station aimlessly, all the disgusting stuff. But geez, this was good.
I think, it was for me, it's like it's the moment when it clicks is when the Rossi. I mean, for me, is like when it leaves when the Tachi leaves, and you're like, oh, I get it. Like now they found their chariot. Now they're on their ship. This is the crew. Oh, I get it now. Like they're all gelled. They're into because it's like for the first 3 episodes, they're so antagonistic with each other. Holden and Amos and Naomi, you really don't even know what you're following. And then like they just kind of go from calamity to calamity. And it's interesting, but you're not connected with it yet. And I think in that moment, it all crystallizes. And I think it's almost it's almost a flaw of it being so well adapted. Whereas in the book, you have kind of more time to be inside the heads of the characters. You kind of hear them, and it's all from Holden's point of view for the most part. So you kind of get that walkthrough. I think with the show, it almost suffers that it's such a faithful adaptation that you're kind of just alienated. You just don't know why you're watching yet.
I think that there is also an impact of that our times on the book as an information source. And the attention span reduced significantly by the mobile applications. I'm a performance engineer by trade, and I started in mobile probably around 2003 at the time. And so basically what happened, people now, and probably already starting in 2015, if it's not done in 3 seconds, you put the phone down because the light changes and you can go down. You can go next. You can go drive again. So, and I think that books now, if you stopped reading at some point, that type of literature, or in general, and that's an acquired skill as well. So you lost it. I mean, I'm picking up books now, and it's difficult to read it. I used to read books through the nights and it was easy. Now I fall asleep on the 3rd page. And it might be the same. I mean, it might be one of the reasons that did that, at least to me. And that's, I guess I'm representing many other people.
You're not alone.
There's so much entertainment now, and it comes so fast and furious. It's hard to like.
Yeah.
I find like there's a million comedy podcasts, and that's all almost instantaneous entertainment. And there's like everything Gary does, and Doomcock and Az and all these guys that are so fascinating. It's like that all happens immediately. You don't have to put any effort into that, and you can just play a mobile game on your phone while you listen to these like really interesting people talk. Yeah, it's our attention spans are changing. I think that's why sports viewership has dropped off. It's too many commercials. It's too bloated. It's too long. I think the way we consume media is changing. It is. It's that's a whole other conversation.
I like seeing all of the cases of each one of our chat members talking about what caught them, about Chris Wiz talking about how what you had up previously was about the protomolecule exploding out of Venus, the structure exploding out of it, and how Elvis mentioned when he saw those ships ready to engage the Doniger and what that means, and the CQB episode. Oh,
that's a great episode. Yeah.
It sounds like most people really get hooked in that episode 3, episode 4 cusp in that season 1, right? Because I mean, to A-Dub's point, right, when they're in the holding cell and the shots go through and they have to patch the ship while they're prisoners.
Yeah, with a folder.
While they're prisoners, they patch the ship, for Christ's sake. That was a cool scene. I see why that
thing. There was enough forward thought to put that kit in every single cell, including the cells for holding.
Yes.
Which is almost, to me, that it's almost a nitpick. It's almost a nitpick because how could you take those elements and use those to possibly break out of your cell?
But that was
not something that you wanted to do.
That was not a brig. They did not put them in the brig. That was not a cell. That was just.
Wait a second. That was when they moved them out later, so they were out of the brig at that time. Yeah. You're right, A-Dub.
So,
all right.
I just rewatched it.
He did just rewatch this.
And you know what? To the point of the binge watching, I wanted to say that one of the beautiful parts of so like I'm not probably like you guys because like I definitely haven't watched it multiple times, but I must say that on the binge, I am so thankful for the skip button. I move across all the all the feely touchy, because I'm not interested in that. I want to just see one story. And in this book, it's interesting. It's like in the Game of Thrones, in the Song of Ice and Fire, where they name the chapters by the name of the character that the chapter is about, right? And so like, for example, in Game of Thrones, I was just skipping until I got to Daenerys. Skip. Daenerys, skip. I was interested in that. That was the most actionable. I was interested in that. Was cool. The rest I could read separately or maybe differently or whatever, but I didn't. And the same thing here. I'm not interested in Naomi's story, frankly. Yeah, I can analyze it till midnight, but
I need the rainy days as much as the sunny.
Okay.
Like I like the nuance. I like all the, but yeah, my friend Lindsay used to do the channel with me. She said the same thing. She didn't like the Naomi Holden like love story, and I was like, I don't. There's nothing about this show I don't like.
They're different people. I like Schwarzenegger movies. I like when the guy wins from the beginning to the end, and there is no like Stallone, which does that like over the top, and at first everybody is hitting him, and then he's like, "I'll prevail." I like the guy who just goes like, "I'll destroy you" from the very beginning.
Listen, I love Total Recall. I love The Running Man. I like
Running Man.
Commando. That's the movie where he does it all.
See, that doesn't interest me. I try to like movies like that, but I'm like, this is just
too
much.
I let him go.
Anyway, I know Jake
throws the knife at the guy, sticks him to a tree. Stick around.
Yeah.
Right. Final thoughts on tonight's episode, man. We're gonna get wrapping up, my brother.
Is that me?
Yeah.
You, Bob.
Good episode. Can't wait for the next one. Thanks, guys, for talking about it. I'm gonna go back and watch some more of season 3, and I'll do my homework for the next episode.
All right, Draco. Final thoughts for tonight, brother.
At least the exposition in the episode didn't put me out too much, and we finally got the Rossi kicking ass and taking names and wondering what's going to happen next. I keep thinking I need now we need Matt to do his rewrite of how he would have made the thing better, but we probably got to move on before that. Otherwise, yes, I'm still in it. This might not have been the best this probably definitely in a whole season of diamonds of different cuts and qualities, this might not be the shiniest one, but I still liked it.
Fair enough.
Fair enough, man. I mean, for me, it's it was my least favorite episode of the season, but it was still very good. Absolutely 8 out of 10, which is my lowest rating of any episode this season. And that should tell you something, because I don't think I'm rating unfairly. I really don't. It was absolutely an 8 out of 10, which is a great rating from me, right? But it's just that when you compare it to shows that got a 9, 9.5, and a couple I gave them straight up 10 out of 10s, I mean, there's some separation there. So it's the worst episode of the best season of the show.
Yeah,
it's still a very good episode. Enjoyed the hell out of it. It's not an insult to say that this was the worst episode of the season. I mean, I think it was, but I still very much enjoyed it.
And also, like, the stakes of the other episodes were so high. I mean, you had meteor impacts on Earth, and Amos is in the bottom of a prison, and there's like a lot going on. So,
yes.
By the way, you got this highlighted comment to the end of it. They are dropping within 6 minutes, based on my exposure, except for the first 3-parter. They dropped within 6 minutes of 7 p.m. each week.
Yeah, it was
his other question about when we do this.
Yeah, so what we've been doing throughout the run of this season is we've been doing kind of alternating weeks between Matt and my's channel for the Tuesday night top review. So Next week on Tuesday, we will be on Foul Ball Productions. And when we're on my channel, it's at 9:30 Central Time, so 10:30 Eastern. Matt, you're a little bit variable from that, but pretty close, right?
We can keep it. I mean, just for the sake of the audience, we can keep it exactly the same. We can just keep it at 9:30 Central, 7:30 Pacific.
Yeah. So for the Tuesday night show, we'll be on Foul Ball Productions next week, and then back over here the following week, and then be with you for the season finale, Matt.
I like that. That's
You
cool.
like
That's a good system. I like that.
It works, man.
It
does.
Works. And everyone keeps showing up. We got the same people, all the time.
Great,
it's really cool, man. So, hail the chat. Thank you guys for hanging out with us. This is the most fun part. We say it every time. We fucking mean it. It's great that there's all these fans, and people that want to hang out and talk with us, and you guys help the conversation.
Oh yeah,
2 hours already.
Yes, sir. I know, it goes fast.
It does.
Talking about the show, one episode.
Yeah.
But also a ton of other cool stuff, which was nice.
Yes.
Absolutely. All right. Well, I think we were going to wrap up for the evening because, by God, it's pushing midnight here, and I do have to work in the morning. So,
After only 2 hours?
I know.
Twice the
whole thing and say,
yeah, maybe we'll go a little bit earlier for the season finale because I have a feeling we'll probably want to talk for a long time that night.
Good call. Good call.
All right. Well, everybody have a good evening. Thank you for tuning in tonight. I really appreciate it. Please remember to subscribe to the channels of Foul Ball Productions, Draco Argentus. Now, A-Dubs, I don't think you have any content on the channel yet. If you do, I'll drop your link.
No, I don't have any
link
channel.
anyway.
I just like talking to you guys.
What the hell? Yeah. All right. Everybody have a good evening, and we will catch you on the next stream or the next video. Thank you.
Hail. Bye.
Thanks,
Oyedeng.
Bye, Eric.